Captain Olivia Winters stood on the bridge of the starship Dauntless, looking at the stars through the large viewing window. Humanity had been exploring space for nearly 100 years now. They had built colonies on 27 different planets and made friends with 3 alien species. It was a good time to be human. Olivia sipped her coffee as she checked the ship's course. They were heading to the colony of New Eden to deliver medical supplies and welcome new settlers. It was a simple mission, the kind she had done many times before. "Captain, we're getting strange readings," said Alan Garcia, her communications officer. His face looked worried as he stared at his screen. "What kind of readings?" Olivia asked, walking over to his station. "I'm not sure. It's like something big just appeared near New Eden, something that wasn't there before." Olivia frowned. Space was full of strange things, but objects didn't just appear out of nowhere. "Show me." The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone on the bridge go quiet. A massive black ship hung above New Eden. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The ship seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. No windows, no visible engines, just a huge dark mass shaped like a twisted hand. "Try to contact New Eden," Olivia ordered. Alan worked at his controls, then shook his head. "No response from the main colony, but I'm picking up emergency signals from the defense outpost." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a man in a military uniform. His face was covered in dirt and blood. Behind him, people were running and screaming. "This is Lieutenant Peter Smith at New Eden Defense Outpost. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by unknown aliens. They came. Without warning." An explosion rocked the background, and Smith looked over his shoulder. His eyes went wide with fear. "They're inside. God help us, they're—" The screen went black. "Get that signal back," Olivia shouted. "I can't," Alan said, his hands shaking. "It's gone. All communications from New Eden are gone." Olivia stared at the blank screen, then made a quick decision. "Turn the ship around, maximum speed back to Earth. We need to warn everyone." "What about New Eden?" asked Sam Foster, her second-in-command. "There are 10,000 people on that colony." Olivia's face hardened. "We're a supply ship, Sam. We have no weapons that could fight something that size. If we go there, we'll just die with them." The Dauntless turned and raced away from New Eden, pushing its engines to the limit. Behind them, the black ship remained in orbit around the colony. They didn't know it yet, but they had just witnessed the first attack in what would become known as the Nexari War. By the time the Dauntless reached Earth 2 weeks later, 3 more colonies had gone silent. The government called it a situation, but everyone knew the truth. It was an invasion. Dr. Catherine Wells didn't like military bases. She was a scientist, not a soldier. But here she was, in the middle of Earth's largest military complex, trying to understand an enemy no one had ever seen before. "Play it again," she told her assistant, Ben Clark. Ben nodded and tapped the controls. The screen showed grainy footage from a security camera on New Eden. Dark shapes moved through the colony streets. They walked on 2 legs but didn't look human. Their bodies seemed covered in hard plates like insects, and they moved with strange jerking motions. "Freeze it there," Catherine said, pointing to one of the aliens. "Zoom in." The image zoomed in on the alien's face. If it could be called a face. It had no eyes that she could see, just a smooth surface with weird patterns on it. Below that were parts that opened and closed like a mouth, but with too many pieces. "What are they doing to those people?" Ben asked, his voice quiet. The footage showed the aliens grabbing humans and pushing them into strange, pod-like structures. Once inside, the pods closed up, and the people's screams stopped. "I don't know," Catherine admitted. "Taking them somewhere, maybe? Or—" She didn't finish the thought. The other possibility was too horrible. Catherine had studied alien life for 20 years. She had helped make first contact with the friendly Mira people and had written books about alien biology. But these creatures, these Nexari as they were being called, were different from anything she had ever seen. "Dr. Wells?" A soldier stood at the door of her lab. "The Emergency Council wants to see you, now." Catherine followed, The soldier through long hallways until they reached a large room with a round table. Important-looking people in suits and uniforms sat around it, their faces grim. Admiral Eric Daniels, the head of Earth's space fleet, stood up when she entered. "Dr. Wells, thank you for coming. Please tell the Council what you've learned about these aliens." Catherine cleared her throat. "Not much, I'm afraid. We have very little data, but I can tell you this. They're not just killing. They're taking people, collecting them." "For what purpose?" asked a woman in a dark suit. "I believe they're harvesting something from us, something they need." Catherine put her notes on the table. "In every attack, they've taken great care to capture humans alive, then put them in those pod structures. They want something we have." "What could they possibly want from us?" someone asked. Catherine looked around the table. "I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. And when I do, maybe we'll find a way to stop them." As she spoke, alerts began sounding throughout the base. Admiral Daniels put a hand to his earpiece listening to a message. His face went pale. "It's happening again," he said. "They've appeared above the colony on Mars, our biggest colony. 20,000 people." The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. The Nexari weren't going to stop. This wasn't just an attack. It was the beginning of a war humanity wasn't ready for. Outside the window, the sky was clear and blue, but somewhere up there, beyond the stars, a darkness was spreading. A darkness that fed on human fear. And it was coming, closer every day. 6 months passed. The war with the Nexari was going badly for humans. 8 colonies had fallen. Every time Earth sent ships to fight, the Nexari seemed to know exactly what they would do. It was like the aliens could read minds. Commander Jack Holloway looked out the small window of his ship, the Phantom. It was a special ship built to be hard to see. It was the only way to get close to Nexari territory without being attacked right away. "Are you sure about this?" asked Linda Green, his pilot. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her voice shook a little. "No," Jack said honestly. "But we need to know what they're doing with our people. We need to understand the enemy." The Phantom moved silently through space. They were heading to New Eden, the first colony that had been attacked. No one had been there for 6 months. No one human, at least. "Coming up on New Eden now," Linda said. "Engaging stealth systems." The ship went dark except for the dim glow of essential controls. They moved slowly into orbit around the planet. What they saw made them all gasp. New Eden had been a beautiful place with blue oceans and green forests. Now large parts of it were covered in something black and shiny. Strange towers reached up from the surface, pulsing with dim light. "What are they doing down there?" whispered Steve Harris, the team's scientist. "I don't know," Jack said. "But we're going to find out. Get ready for landing." They found a spot to land far from the main colony, in a forest that hadn't been changed yet. The team put on their spacesuits and stepped out onto the planet's surface. "Stay close," Jack ordered. "And remember, if they spot us, we run. We can't fight them." They walked through the forest for an hour before reaching the edge of the changed area. The ground ahead was covered in a black, rubber-like material. The trees were gone, replaced by strange, twisted structures that looked almost like plants, but not quite. "The entire planet's ecosystem is being rewritten," Jack said into his radio. "They're terraforming it into something that matches their biology." Steve took samples of the black material while Jack and Linda moved closer to what had once been the main colony. They stayed hidden behind the alien structures, watching. Nexari moved through the streets of the dead colony. Up close, they were even stranger than they looked in videos. Their bodies seemed to shift and change as they walked, like they weren't quite solid. And they made a sound, a high, thin noise that made Jack's teeth hurt. "Look there," Linda whispered, pointing. A group of Nexari were leading humans between buildings. The humans walked with their eyes wide open, but they didn't seem to see anything. Their faces showed pure terror. "They're alive," Jack said. "Some of them, at least." "But what are they doing with them?" Linda asked. Before Jack could answer, Steve's voice came over the radio. "Commander, you need to see this. I found something big." They met back at the edge of the forest. Steve led them to a hill overlooking a vast clearing. In the center stood a massive structure, taller than any building humans had made. It pulsed with energy and seemed to be pointing up into space. "It's sending something," Steve said, checking his instruments. "A signal, directed at a specific point in deep space, far beyond our territory." "They're calling for something," Jack realized. "They're not just an invasion force. They're an advance party, calling to something else." They took as many pictures and readings as they could before heading back to their ship. They needed to get this information to Earth right away. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Catherine Wells was working with a new partner. Dr. Nathan Freeman was a neurologist who had been studying people who had seen the Nexari up close and survived. "Look, at these brain patterns," Nathan said, showing Catherine his computer screen. "Every survivor shows the same thing. Massive activity in the amygdala. The fear center of the brain," Catherine said. "Exactly. More activity than I've ever seen before. It's like their brains were locked in a state of extreme terror." Catherine thought about the pods they had seen in the videos, the ones the Nexari put people in. What if that's what they want? What if they're feeding on fear somehow? Nathan looked at her. "You mean like emotivores? Creatures that eat emotions?" "Not the emotions themselves," Catherine said, getting excited as the idea formed. "The chemicals our brains make when we feel fear. Adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, what if those are like drugs to them, or food?" They worked through the night testing their theory. By morning, they were convinced they were right. The Nexari weren't just psychologically terrorizing humans. They were harvesting the physical products of human fear. "This explains why they keep people alive," Catherine said, "and why they don't just kill everyone right away. They need us alive and afraid." "There's something else," Nathan said. "If they feed on fear, they might be sensitive to it in other ways too. They might be able to sense it from a distance." Catherine's eyes widened. "That's how they always know our battle plans. When our soldiers feel fear, which anyone would in battle, the Nexari can sense it. They're telepathic, but only for fear." They took their findings to Admiral Daniels right away. He listened carefully, then asked, "If all this is true, how do we fight an enemy that feeds on our fear and can sense our plans through it?" Nathan and Catherine looked at each other. It was Catherine who answered. "We need soldiers who don't feel fear," she said. "We need to find a way to block fear or suppress it completely." "Is that even possible?" Daniels asked. "I think so," Nathan said. "My team has been working on drugs that affect the amygdala for PTSD patients. We might be able to adapt them." Admiral Daniels stood up. "Do it. Whatever you need, you'll have it if you're right. This could be the first real chance we've had to fight back." As they left the Admiral's office, Catherine's phone beeped. It was a message from the science team. Commander Holloway's ship had returned from Nexari space with new information. For the first time in months, Catherine felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Humans were starting to understand their enemy, and understanding was the first step to fighting back. 1 year after the first Nexari attack, humans were still losing the war. But things were about to change. Admiral Susan Bell stood in front of a room of military leaders. On the screen behind her was a picture of a human brain. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Operation Fearless," she said. "Based on the research of Dr. Wells and Dr. Freeman, we now know the Nexari feed on our fear. They can also sense it from a distance, which is how they've been able to counter our every move." She clicked a button, and the brain image changed, showing different colors. "Dr. Freeman has developed a way to temporarily shut down the fear response in human brains. This will make our soldiers invisible to Nexari detection." An older general raised his hand. "You're talking about sending soldiers into battle who can't feel fear? That sounds dangerous." Dr. Freeman stepped forward. "Yes, it is. Fear exists for a reason. It keeps us safe. Without it, people might take risks they shouldn't take. But right now, our fear is killing us. The Nexari can sense it and use it against us." "How does it work?" someone else asked. "It's a combination of drugs and a small device attached to the base of the skull," Freeman explained. It blocks signals from the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, for about 12 hours. After that, everything goes back to normal. Admiral, Bell spoke again. We've selected a special team for the first mission. They'll attack a Nexari command ship. If this works, it will be our first real victory. The team, led by Captain Ryan Mitchell, trained for 2 weeks. They learned to make decisions without the guidance of fear. It was strange at first. It feels like something's missing, Ryan told his team. Like I should be worried about things. But I'm not. Just don't do anything stupid, said Greg Powell, his second in command. No fear doesn't mean no brain. The day of the mission came. The team took their fear-blocking drugs and activated their devices. Their small ship approached the massive Nexari vessel. Usually, Nexari ships would detect human ships from far away. But this time, they got close without being noticed. It's working, Ryan said. They can't sense us. The team boarded the Nexari ship through a maintenance hatch. They moved through dark, organic-looking hallways. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet. Stay together, Ryan ordered. Remember the mission. Plant the bombs and grab a live specimen if possible. They split into 2 groups. Ryan's group headed for the ship's control center. The other group, led by Greg, went to place bombs at key points around the ship. Ryan's team found the control center. Inside, 3 Nexari moved around strange controls that looked more grown than built. The aliens didn't notice the humans right away. When they did, they seemed confused, turning their headplates back and forth as if looking for something they couldn't see. Ryan gave the signal, and his team fired their weapons. The special bullets, designed by Dr. Wells, contained a chemical that disrupted Nexari biology. 2 of the aliens fell immediately. The third tried to escape, but Ryan tackled it to the ground. Specimen secured, he reported into his radio. Greg, how are those bombs coming? All set, Greg replied. We also found something you should see. Sending you the location now. Ryan ordered half his team to take the captured Nexari back to their ship. He and 2 others went to meet Greg. They found him in a large room filled with the pod structures they had seen in videos. Inside each pod was a human, eyes wide with terror, wires connected to their heads. They're alive, Greg said. All of them. Ryan checked one of the pods. The person inside was thin and pale, but breathing. We can't fit them all on our ship, he said, but we'll come back for them. I promise. They set the last bomb in the pod room and ran back to their ship. As they flew away, the bombs went off. The Nexari ship broke apart in a series of explosions. For the first time, humans had won a battle against the Nexari, and they had captured one alive. Back on Earth, Dr. Wells studied the captured Nexari. It was kept in a special cell designed to block its telepathic abilities. Amazing, she said, looking at test results. It's not even a natural species. It's been engineered, created by something else. Created to harvest fear? Admiral Bell asked. Yes, but not just to feed on it. Look at this. Catherine showed her a scan of the Nexari's body. It has organs specifically designed to process the chemicals from human fear and convert them into a kind of energy. Energy that gets sent back to whatever created them. Meanwhile, civilian engineer Samantha Powell had been working on another project. She studied the materials from the destroyed Nexari ship and developed a shield that could block their telepathic signals. It won't stop them from feeding on fear directly, she explained to the military council, but it will stop them from sensing fear at a distance. They won't be able to detect our ships or read our plans anymore. The shields were quickly produced and installed on all human ships. Combined with the fearless squads, they gave humans a fighting chance for the first time. The war reached its turning point at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. A human fleet, protected by Powell's shields and led by fearless strike teams, attacked the Nexari forces that had taken the colony. The battle was hard. Many ships were lost on both sides. But in the end, the humans won. They destroyed 3 Nexari motherships and took back the colony. When the fearless teams landed on the planet's surface, they found thousands of humans in pods, being farmed for their fear. They were rescued and taken back to Earth for treatment. It was the first major victory for humanity. People celebrated in the streets of every city on Earth. For the first time since the war began, there was hope. But Admiral Bell couldn't fully enjoy the victory. She remembered what Commander Holloway had discovered on New Eden. The Nexari were sending signals into deep space, calling to something else, something bigger. Whatever the Nexari were signaling to was still out there, moving. Closer. And Admiral Bell had a feeling that the real war hadn't even started yet. With new technologies and brave soldiers, humanity began taking back its lost colonies. The Fearless program grew larger as more people volunteered. They knew the risks, but they wanted to fight back against the creatures that had caused so much suffering. Captain Ryan Mitchell led a team deep into Nexari space. Their mission was to find out more about the signal being sent from New Eden. They needed to know what was coming. Ryan's team landed on a small moon near what had once been the colony of Arcadia. From there, they could watch the Nexari without being seen. "There," said Greg Powell, pointing at a screen. "That's their main base on Arcadia. It used to be the colony's capital city." Ryan studied the image. The city had been completely transformed. Where human buildings once stood, there were now twisted towers that seemed to pulse with life. "We need to get inside," Ryan said. "Find their communications center." "That's going to be risky even for us," Greg said. "There are thousands of Nexari down there." Ryan nodded. "I know, but Admiral Bell needs this information. We can't fight what we don't understand." That night, the team moved down to the planet's surface. They wore special suits that Samantha Powell had designed, which helped hide them from Nexari senses even better than the fear-blocking drugs alone. They made their way through the alien city, staying in shadows and moving silently. Twice they had to hide as Nexari patrols passed by. The aliens seemed nervous, moving quickly and checking their surroundings often. "They're scared," Greg whispered. "I didn't think they could feel fear." "They can't," Ryan replied, "but they can feel something like it. They know they're losing." They found the communications center in what had once been the colony's government building. Inside, dozens of Nexari worked at strange, organic-looking computers. In the center of the room was a large crystal that glowed with blue light. Ryan's team watched from a hidden position for hours, recording everything. Then something happened that made them all freeze. The crystal in the center of the room suddenly glowed brighter. A beam of light shot up from it, and then a figure appeared above the crystal. It wasn't a Nexari. It was something else entirely. A tall, thin creature with multiple limbs and a head that looked like a mass of tentacles. When it spoke, the sound hurt Ryan's ears, even through his helmet. The Nexari in the room all bowed down. "The Harbingers grow impatient," the figure said, in a strange, echoing voice. "The harvest is insufficient. Why do you fail?" One Nexari stepped forward. "The humans have found ways to hide their fear from us. They attack without fear, and our defenses cannot detect them." The figure seemed to grow larger, its tentacles writhing in anger. "Unacceptable. The Harbingers need the energy from human fear to cross the void. Without it, they will feed on you instead." "We will increase production," the Nexari promised. "We have new methods to extract more fear from each human." "See that you do," the figure said. "The Harbingers will arrive at the beacon in one Earth. Be ready." The figure vanished and the crystal's light dimmed. Ryan signaled his team to retreat. They had what they came for and more. They now knew what the Nexari were calling to, the Harbingers, and they knew how much time was left before they arrived. Back on Earth, Dr. Catherine Wells made another important discovery. She had been studying the Nexari biology for months, trying to find weaknesses. Now she thought she had found one. "They engineered themselves to feed on fear," she explained to Admiral Bell. "But every biological system has vulnerabilities." Catherine showed the Admiral a simulation on her computer. It showed what happened inside a Nexari's body when it fed on human fear chemicals. They absorbed the chemicals through their skin and processed them in these special organs, Catherine said, pointing to the screen. The energy created is then stored in their bodies until they can transfer it to the beacon. "And the vulnerability?" Admiral Bell asked. "Here." Catherine pointed to a different part of the simulation. If we could introduce this compound into their systems while they're feeding, it would cause a reaction. The very thing that gives them strength would poison them. Admiral Bell studied the information. Can you make this compound? I already have, Catherine said, holding up a small vial of clear liquid. I call it courage. When a Nexari tries to feed on a human who has this in their bloodstream, it will get sick and possibly die. The Admiral smiled for the first time in months. Dr. Wells, you may have just given us the key to winning this war. The courage agent was quickly produced in large quantities and given to all human soldiers, not just the fearless teams. It was also developed into a gas that could be released into the air on occupied colonies. Admiral Bell planned a daring operation, a deep strike into Nexari territory to deploy the courage agent at all their major bases at the same time. It would require coordination between all fearless squads and regular forces. Ryan Mitchell's team was assigned the most difficult target, the main Nexari base on New Eden, where the beacon was located. This won't be like other missions, Ryan told his team as they prepared. This time we're not just gathering information, we're taking the fight directly to them. The day of the attack came. Hundreds of human ships jumped into Nexari-controlled space at the same time. The aliens, not expecting such a large and coordinated attack, were caught off guard. Ryan's team landed on New Eden near the beacon. They carried canisters of the courage, agent in gas form. Their plan was to release it into the air circulation system of the Nexari base. The fighting was intense. Even with their advantages, humans took heavy losses. The Nexari fought desperately, knowing what was at stake. But in the end, humanity prevailed. The courage agent was deployed successfully at every target. Nexari forces began to fall ill and die as they tried to feed on human fear and encountered the poison instead. For the first time, Ryan's team was able to capture intact Nexari communication devices. They brought them back to Earth for study. Dr. Wells was able to translate some of the messages between the Nexari and whatever was approaching from deep space. The harvest fails. The swarm weakens. The harbingers come nonetheless. It was a victory, but everyone knew it wasn't the end. The harbingers were still coming, and humanity had 1 year to prepare for them. 5 years had passed since the first Nexari attack. Humanity had taken back most of its lost territory. The remaining Nexari forces had pulled back to New Eden, gathering around the massive beacon they had built there. Admiral Susan Bell stood on the bridge of Earth's largest warship, the Defender. Around her, officers worked at their stations preparing for what might be the final battle of the war. "Status report," she ordered. "All ships are in position," replied her second-in-command, Frank Wright. "The fearless teams are ready to deploy." Susan nodded. Earth had spent the last year preparing for this day. They had built huge defense platforms throughout human space. They had stockpiled the courage agent in quantities that could affect entire star systems. And they had studied everything they could about the mysterious harbingers. "What about the beacon?" she asked. "Still active," Frank said. "Our scientists say it's getting stronger. Whatever's coming, it's close." Susan looked at the main screen, which showed New Eden. The once beautiful planet was now almost completely covered in the black material of the Nexari. The beacon rose from the center of the main colony, a massive tower that pulsed with strange energy. "Captain Mitchell's team?" she asked. "On the ground," Frank confirmed. "They're moving toward the beacon control center now." On the surface of New Eden, Ryan Mitchell led his team through the twisted landscape. 5 years of fighting the Nexari had changed him. He had not used the fear blocker drugs in months. He had learned to control his fear on his own. "Stay alert," he told his team. "These Nexari are different from the ones we've fought before." He was right. The Nexari defending the beacon were larger and faster than normal. They had adapted to resist the courage agent, though it still weakened them. The team fought their way through the alien city, moving from cover to cover. 3 of Ryan's people were injured in the first hour, but they kept going. They had to reach the beacon control center. "There it is," Greg Powell said, pointing to a large building at the base of the beacon. "That's where the controls should be." They made their final push, throwing courage grenades to clear a path. Inside the building, they found what they were looking for, a room filled with crystal controls similar to the ones they had seen in the communications center on Arcadia. "Set the charges," Ryan ordered. "We need to destroy this place before the Harbingers arrive." But as his team began placing explosives, alarms sounded throughout the facility. The main crystal in the center of the room glowed bright blue, then white. "They're here," Greg said, looking at his scanner. "The Harbingers. They just appeared at the edge of the system." Ryan activated his radio. "Admiral Bell, the Harbingers have arrived. We're still working on the beacon." Up in space, Susan. Bell saw them appear. The Harbingers were massive, bigger than any ships humans or Nexari had ever built. They looked like giant, organic mechanical hybrids, part machine, part living creature. They radiated a strange energy that made instruments go crazy. "All ships, battle positions," Susan ordered. "Defense platforms, stand by to fire." The human fleet moved to intercept the Harbingers. But something strange happened. As the massive entities approached, everyone on the human ships felt a wave of something. Not fear exactly, but a deep sense of being small and unimportant. Even the fearless soldiers felt it. "What is that?" Frank asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Some kind of psychic attack," Susan said, "but different from the Nexari. Stronger." Down on the planet, Ryan's team felt it too. The feeling was like a heavy weight pressing down on their minds. "Keep working," Ryan told his team. "We can't let this stop us." They continued setting charges, but Ryan was thinking, if the Harbingers fed on fear like the Nexari, but were so much more powerful, maybe they could use that against them. He looked at the crystal controls. "Wait," he said. "I have an idea." Instead of destroying the controls, Ryan began working with them. He had learned a lot about Nexari technology over the years. He connected his computer to the crystal system. "What are you doing?" Greg asked. "The beacon is designed to transmit fear to the Harbingers," Ryan explained. "It collects the energy from all the harvested human fear and sends it to them. But what if we change what it sends?" Ryan pulled a small device from his pack. It was one of Dr. Freeman's prototype fear blockers, but modified. "This doesn't just block fear," Ryan said. "It can generate the opposite: courage, calmness, confidence. If I connect it to the beacon..." He worked quickly, attaching the device to the main crystal. The crystal's color began to change from blue to a warm golden color. "Admiral," Ryan reported, "we've reprogrammed the beacon. It's now transmitting the neurological pattern of courage rather than fear, directly into the Harbingers." In space, the effect was immediate. The massive Harbingers began to move erratically. Their organic parts seemed to be fighting against their mechanical parts. "They're destabilizing," Susan said, watching the readings. "All ships fire everything you have." The human fleet opened fire with weapons enhanced by technology taken from the Nexari. Energy beams and missiles struck the disoriented Harbingers. The battle lasted for 3 days. When it was over, most of the Harbingers had been destroyed. A few had retreated back into deep space. The Nexari forces, without their masters to guide them, went dormant. Ryan's team was extracted from New Eden. They watched from their ship as the planet slowly began to heal itself, the black Nexari material starting to recede. 1 month later, a ceremony was held on Earth to honor those who had fought in the war. Admiral Bell gave a speech to a crowd of thousands. "We faced an enemy that tried to use our own fear against us," she said. "But they didn't understand what humans are truly capable of. Yes, we feel fear, but we also feel courage, hope, and determination. And in the end, those proved stronger." After the ceremony, Ryan Mitchell stood alone, looking up at the stars. 5 years of war had changed humanity. They had developed new technologies. They had formed a stronger union between Earth and all its colonies. They were more prepared for whatever might come next from the depths of space. "They came to harvest our fear," he said quietly. "But instead they taught us not to be afraid of the darkness between stars." Across the solar system, ships were already being prepared for new missions. Humanity was ready to expand outward once more. But this time, they would carry with them the lesson of the HFY War. That terror, no matter how overwhelming, could always be overcome by courage. As for the few, harbingers that had escaped, humans would be watching for them. And if they ever returned, humanity would be ready.